can blow with this, you can blow with that. You can blow with this, or you can blow with that. Or you can blow with this, or you can blow with that. Or you can
Well, when it comes to communicating confidently, there's a fine line between standing up for yourself and being confrontational. So today on This or That, we're looking at assertive versus aggressive behaviour.
Very fine line. Our resident psychologist Sabina Reid headed out to see what the public thinks.
Assertive to me is stepping up. Assertive to me is getting a job done. It's going forward and doing it. Guiding people, being assertive. Whereas aggressive is actually using a bully style tactic to get what you want to get done and get where you want to be.
If you become aggressive, what does that look like?
Usually a few F words come out.
I'd say that some people are born more aggressive than others naturally, but you can learn to change those traits.
Who have you learned to be assertive from?
Well, I'd have to be assertive when I argue to the parents.
How do you know when you're being aggressive?
When I haven't had coffee.
That'll do it every time. And for more on this, we're joined by psychologist Sabina Reid. Hello there, Sabina. Lovely to see you. What defines an aggressive style of communication?
So aggressive behaviour, Larry, is really about putting your own needs first, but while doing so we violate and humiliate and intimidate the other person.
Okay, and so you're unaware of the impact. It's often in anger.
Yeah, often we respond in anger, and we don't realise what impact our behaviour has on someone else. And people who are aggressive tend to also take a win-loss approach, so that they're expecting at all outcomes, at all costs, for them to win. That's the goal, no matter what impact it has on the recipient.
All right, let's talk about assertive people. How do they communicate?
So assertive people also understand that they need to put their needs on the table, but while doing so, they won't impact negatively the person that they're talking to. So they're very aware of other people, they use positive body language, they use eye contact, and they understand empathy. In other words, they understand what impact their communication will have on the other person, and perhaps most importantly, they're very clear about what their purpose of communication is. What message are they trying to convey?
Okay, and they respect the other person's view. A lot of people are guilty of being passive-aggressive. What is that exactly?
So passive-aggressive, Kylie, is when we have a more deliberate attempt at being angry and aggressive with someone. And that can look like anything from withdrawing, sulking, gossiping, sabotaging. Particularly you see passive-aggressive behaviour when people say things like, whatever, yep, sure, fine, that kind of eye roll, which is really not accepting what the other person's saying and saying it in a more toxic way.
But Sabina, what if the person that you're talking to is really aggressive and you want to be passive? You don't want two aggressive people. There'd be like a Nat Geo documentary going on there.
Look, I do think there are ways that I don't know about the Nat Geo analogy, but there are ways that when two aggressive people are together, they can minimise and diffuse that altercation. And really the best way to do that is to use non-blaming language, because we know that people tend to get aggressive because they feel vulnerable or they feel in some way that they've been hardly done by. So if we can empathise with perhaps where they're coming from, it's easier to diffuse that kind of interaction.
Are we born leaning one way or the other, or do we learn certain communication styles, Sabina?
You know, Carly, one of the things I love about this or that segment is we're putting under the microscope a lot of traits and behaviours that we can learn, because what's the point? If we can't change, why are we looking at these things? So we know that aggression has a higher influence of genetics than assertiveness does, but that doesn't mean we can't learn to be less aggressive, and we certainly can learn to be more assertive.
Because sometimes you've got to learn this stuff to succeed in business and to move up the ladder. You've got to change your posturing in the way you deal with situations, right?
Absolutely. I mean, being assertive is a far healthier style of communication than being aggressive. And we know that in the moment sometimes we feel aggressive because we feel out of control. We feel like our message isn't being heard. So it's almost like a childlike way of upping the ante until someone hears what we're saying. But if we can rethink that to know that being assertive really is about respecting our own needs while respecting the needs of other people around us, we'll know that our message is going to finally land in the way we want it to.
Okay, and that was aggressive versus assertive. Thank you so much, Sabina, for shedding light on that for us.
Great. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.